Hello. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everyone. I'm really honored to be here today. I rarely have an opportunity to speak to a room full of people who are just on the edge of realizing their full potential and jumping out there into the world, so I'm very excited to talk with you today. I want to start with a question. How many of you in this room would like to be a teacher one day? Raise your hands. All right, we got a good number there. How many of you in this room would like to be a change maker? Everybody should be raising their hands, right? Okay. I've got news for you. You can't be one without the other. And here's why. Let's see if this works. Here we go. Yep. Making change means changing minds, and changing minds requires teaching. You may not be a kindergarten teacher, but on almost a daily basis, whether you're saving endangered species deep in the ocean, developing economic programs in remote villages, or creating products that make life easier for underserved communities, no matter what you're doing, no matter what your issue is, your work will require you to teach people to see things in a fundamentally different way. I know this because I've been doing this my entire professional life. And it is a daily reality at Center for Inspired Teaching, where I've worked for almost a decade. Inspired Teaching's mission is to build a better school experience for children through transformative teacher training. That means they're trying to change this kind of teaching. You know this scene. You may not be able to hear it, but you know what that looks like. There we go. Into this kind of teaching. Anybody recognize this? Yes. Oops, wait. Oh, I didn't get to show you. You're going to sing the song. Here we go.
Seatbelts, everyone! Please let this be a normal field trip. With a friend? No way!
Cruising on down Main Street, you're relaxed and feeling good.
I've taken you back, right? The traditional and prevailing model of what it means to be a teacher, even a good teacher in the United States, looks something like this: pouring information into students' minds, filling them with passive learning. But at Inspired Teaching, we believe the role of the teacher is to instigate thought and empower students with the tools they need to become the drivers of their own learning. When this kind of teaching occurs, it looks a lot like what Pat just described happens here at your school. Translating creative ideas into enterprising solutions that solve problems and create value across the spectrum. But as you have undoubtedly come to see, that is not the way most of us were taught in our K-12 education. And so getting schools to value this kind of learning and providing teachers with the tools they need to foster it requires a dramatic rethinking at a personal and a systemic level. And that's what we do at Inspired Teaching. At Center for Inspired Teaching, the change we seek to create requires changing minds, and creating that mind shift requires a very particular kind of teaching. So some of the activities you saw them doing when they were teachers, you saw mirrored in what they did with their students, that's Inspired Teaching. And today I'm going to teach you 3 of the fundamental things that you must do as change makers to teach this way too. So to start, I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. You can stay where you are, but make sure you got enough room to kind of move around a little bit. Once you've got yourself situated, close your eyes. No peeking. You are a superhero. I'm going to give you a second to let that sink in. You are a superhero. And you have an outfit. Think about what that outfit looks like. What color is it? What are its components? What's on your head? What's on your feet? What tools do you use to get the job done? What superpowers can you unleash? And how do you do that? Do you use lightning? Can you change things by just thinking about them? And what's your catchphrase? the one that you use, the one that gets quoted in the newspaper every time that you've figured something out, solved a problem, stamped out crime or pollution or inequity? What is your superhero pose? The one that you strike when each challenging task has been resolved. What is that pose? That pose that might end up on a comic book someday. What is that pose? Keep your eyes closed, but I want you to strike that pose. With your eyes closed, strike it, make it. I can see if you're doing it or not. You can. Close your eyes, strike that pose. What does that pose look like? You're the superhero. You just vanquished evil. You just accomplished something amazing. Keep your eyes closed, but hold that pose. Hold it solid. Keep it. And keeping that pose, I want you to open your eyes and look around. You got it? I brought props. You can bring them next time too. All right, take a seat. What you just saw all around you was confidence. Confidence looks like a lot of things, but it's easy for us to identify in our superheroes. And we can learn a thing or two from the way that they embody it, because superheroes have no choice. And if you're going to suit up every day and do this challenging work of changing the world, in whatever way you plan to do so, you're going to need to be confident too. It is a non-negotiable. Man often becomes what he believes himself to be. If I keep on saying to myself that I cannot do a certain thing, it is possible that I may end by really becoming incapable of doing it. On the contrary, if I have the belief that I can do it, I shall surely acquire the capacity to do it, even if I may not have it at the beginning. Mahatma Gandhi. That's the beauty of this thing. Confidence is cultivated. Contrary to what society tells us, it's not a rare thing just a few people are born with. It can be a very common thing if we work to bring it to life in ourselves. In my line of work, a lack of confidence, a lack of belief that you can do what you are tasked with doing, it's a death knell for what we're trying to do. If you go into a room full of teachers, experts in their field, and try to tell them they need to rethink a whole lot about how they go about doing their work, you can't be shy about this challenge. You're asking people to fundamentally change the way they've always done things. And nobody wants to follow a person who sounds uncertain about such a request. Cultivating confidence is a full body experience. It's about how you carry yourself physically, how you build your knowledge in areas in which you need expertise, how you speak clearly, concisely, and with language that conveys purpose. Everyone in this room knew what confidence looked like in a superhero. You know what it looks like in the people around you as well. And what I do is look for people who I can emulate in the areas where projecting confidence doesn't come so easily to me. And it actually doesn't come easily for me. I'm the oldest in my family, and as a kid, I was the most confident person in the world at home with my siblings, but put me out in public, and I always made them do the talking. And my shyness wasn't an impediment until I graduated and suddenly found myself in the front of a classroom of students who weren't that much younger than me, who were all looking to me to be a teacher that they could trust. So I learned to embody the confidence that required, and you can too. Confidence is cultivated, and your life should be a constant pursuit of a PhD in how to cultivate it in yourself. At Inspired Teaching, preparing our staff and our teachers to be confident about the work we are doing is the most vital component of our organizational survival. Confidence, or a lack thereof, will be the deciding factor in decisions you make, and especially in decisions that are made about you, all along your change-making journey. And that journey should be mission-driven. In the nonprofit realm, being mission-driven means you strive to do what you tell the world you're going to do. At Inspired Teaching, that translates into a relentless pursuit of our vision of a day when every student has an inspired teacher. But regardless of the company or organization you work with, you need to be driven by your own mission. What do you want to change about the world? What brought you into this room today? What do you really care about, and why? And what do you want to do about it? The answers to these questions are part of your personal mission. So using the live feed app you've been using all day today, I'm going to challenge you to come up with your mission. I am going to change what? I plan to get there by how? So pull out your phones, whatever your devices are, and we're going to be able to set it up on the screen so we can see what each other's personal missions are. And I'll give you a couple minutes to make that happen. All right, keep them coming, but since I see that we've got somebody in here who's going to change capitalism for the better, I feel comfortable that we can move on. And I hope that happens. That will be fantastic. As a change maker, as an inspired teacher, you drive towards your mission in traffic mode. Keep posting your mission statements up there, because we're going to come back to them again in a moment. If you're still thinking, I know it's kind of hard to do that in 3 minutes. As a change maker, as an inspired teacher, you drive towards this mission, but you drive towards it in traffic mode. Like a GPS, you have to have your eyes set on the goal or the destination, but the routes that you take to get there may have to change based on the various interruptions you face along the way. So let me speak from personal experience. When I was an undergrad at Bryn Mawr College, I ran a tutoring program for youth in inner city Philadelphia. And I'm sad to say that up until that point in my life, I knew next to nothing about educational inequity, which is hard for me to believe now, but at that time, my eyes were opened wide and I was shocked by what I was experiencing and what I was seeing. And so I decided I was going to do something about it. So my mission statement became, I'm going to change the disparity that currently exists between educational opportunities in our country. I'm going to get there by being a teacher. My goal was set. But it turns out that in the nearly 15 years since I graduated from college, my personal GPS has led me in lots of different routes toward that end. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I started out tutoring kids in Philadelphia and decided that I was going to become a teacher, and my path to that was to join Teach for America, which brought me to rural North Carolina, where I was a high school English teacher. And I loved teaching my students. I loved everything that I learned from that experience, but because I was connected to this national organization and got to see what was happening in education all across the country, I became very passionate about this fact that there was stuff people didn't know about that was going on in education and that wasn't going on in education, and how could I let the world know about that, know about these things I was discovering. So I went to school to become a journalist, and I wanted to be an education reporter. And I moved to Chicago, and I started reporting on education there, and in the process started to get to know different nonprofit organizations and became a communications person for one that was working in the city with parents. And through that experience, learned about community organizing, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting path to change too. And so then I started working with another organization that did youth empowerment through civic engagement. And through that program, worked in Chicago and also in Baltimore. And then for family reasons, I moved to Washington, D.C. and got my job with Center for Inspired Teaching. And even there, the route has not been straight, because I started out in communications and then started doing program design and implementation, and then now I'm working in a leadership capacity on organizational change. So it won't always be clear to you why you're taking one route versus another towards your mission. Without that mission driving your ship, you can feel rudderless and like you're just drifting from one thing to another without purpose. But know where you're going, aim for it, strive for it, never take your eyes off of it, and then you can let yourself be creative about how you get there. When we work with teachers, we do just that. In our trainings, we always have a goal, kind of like a mini mission in mind. Say, for example, we're working with this guy. You know him?
30, the Republican-controlled
Have you ever had
House
a
of
teacher like him?
Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the
Couple-
effects
only
of
one
the
person. That's amazing.
anyone
Teachers
anyone
are getting better. See,
Great
Inspired Teaching's
Depression
work is working.
passed the
So we're working with that guy, and we're working with a bunch of his similarly uninspired teacher friends. We'll design learning activities that expose teachers to the research behind why they should change their techniques, and we'll also design learning activities that help them build new techniques. But along the way, half of what we plan to teach we may never get to, and that doesn't matter, as long as the change in thinking that we're striving for actually happens. When you take a mission-driven approach to your life and work, a couple of things happen. You become an expert in alternative routes. You become a cartographer of your personal landscape and that of your issue, learning the intricacies, how things work, how they don't, what to avoid, what to embrace. And you also become aware of all the routes that you don't know. You develop this insatiable curiosity about how to master those as well. So you need to be curious. If you are confident in pursuit of your mission, but you are not curious, you will only get so far. Confident people get folks to stop and listen. Curious people learn how to get those folks to change. You have to be both if you want to accomplish your mission. Inspired teachers are ridiculously curious people, and it is their curiosity that enables their students to thrive. They believe that their students have as much to teach them about being teachers as they have to teach their students about being learners. So they want to learn everything about and from these students, and they do this largely by doing two things. They observe and they listen. Observation means acting as if you are a weather station, paying attention to the way the wind is blowing, the level of humidity in the air, the cloud cover, the temperature, the barometric pressure. You're observing everything and using what you gather to help you tell the weather of the thing you are trying to change. In my work with teachers and their work with students, this means things like sensing a conflict before it arises, or letting a conversation go just a little bit longer because you can tell the group is on the cusp of some big understanding. In the work you do, whatever that may be, you want to observe this way to gather any information you might need to help you reach your goal. I once had a boss who told me, whenever you're in someone's office, like say, for example, this guy, look at everything. Look at what they're wearing, look at what's up on the wall, look at what's on the desk. If you can, try to read what's on the desk. Do all of this because it will help you know where to go with your conversation and where this person is coming from. Getting good at observation helps you learn to read people and situations, and the more experiences you build up in doing so, the better navigator you will be on the path towards your mission. On to listening. The difference between listening and pretending to listen, I discovered, is enormous. One is fluid, the other is rigid. One is alive, the other is stuffed. Eventually, I found a radical way of thinking about listening. Real listening is a willingness to let the other person change you. In my work, this is critical, no matter who I'm talking to or what they're saying. I may be changed because they've altered my thinking on a particular matter, but I may also be changed in the way I think about them because they've given me deeper insight into how they think. If your job as leaders in organizations and companies of the future is to change the world and to change society's thinking in the process, then I challenge you to consider the possibility that you too must always be observing and listening to change. This is true for organizations as well as individuals. When I started out at Inspired Teaching, we ran great programs for teachers in schools and during the summer. And our theory was that the powerful learning experience for participants in these programs would be so transformative that they would go back to their classrooms and become Ms. Frizzell or Mr. Frizzell overnight. And then that inspiration would trickle into their classrooms all around them. Over the years, though, we observed and we listened, and we discovered that our theory of change wasn't working. Even the most empowered and excited, inspired teacher couldn't succeed as an island. And if they brought their new ideas back to a school that was still functioning on an outdated model of what school should be, well, it was hard for their enthusiasm to last very long. And this was especially true for veteran teachers who struggled to break free of their old habits. And principals liked what they saw in individual inspired teachers' classrooms, but they were skeptical about whether or not this could work on a whole school basis. And they wanted to see it in action before they committed diving in whole hog. So our curiosity unveiled a problem. And friends, curiosity does that all the time. But if you're confident, you won't let those troubling discoveries stop your mission-driven journey. The traffic jams, the stop-ups, the rubble in the road, these things are there to make you pause and reflect and reroute. And that's a critical part of the teaching and learning process. At Inspired Teaching, we went back to our mission with bold confidence and arrived at a new solution. We started with a new teacher certification program based on a residency model where we could prepare a whole slew of new teachers who would learn as apprentices for a year from a seasoned, inspired teacher and then go head off into their own classrooms in their second year. We also started a demonstration school where those inquiring principals and other school leaders could come and see this teaching in action and therefore demand more inspired teachers for their schools. We're still putting more inspired teachers in classrooms. It's the same mission. We're just taking a different path to get there. Your path to your mission will change as you change over time. It may have even changed in the past 20 minutes. But maintaining confidence and curiosity on the journey will be key to getting you where you want to go. Don't hold back as a teacher or as a learner, especially in those moments when the road gets tough. You have much to offer this world. I have one more favorite quote to share with you. It's a terrible thing, I think, in life to wait until you're ready. I have this feeling now that actually no one is ever ready to do anything. There is almost no such thing as ready. There is only now, and you may as well do it now. Generally speaking, now is as good a time as any. So stand up again and find a little room. You don't have to close your eyes this time. Whether or not your mission statement made it up there, and I can't see, but I'm trusting it's filled with them. It's filled with them, right? Yeah, okay, good. You were thinking about it. It was in your head. You're thinking about your personal mission statement. So keep that at the front of your mind right now. And now I'm going to go back to the exercise at the beginning. Imagine that you are a superhero tasked with changing that thing. And the good news is you're a superhero, so you can. But you know that you must be three things. You must be confident, you must be mission-driven, and you must be curious. So now, what's your superhero name? What's your color scheme? What's your outfit? What's your special skill? What's your victory pose? Have it in mind, because we're going to come to it in a moment. What's your victory pose? I'll tell you what your catchphrase is this time. Don't hold back. On the count of 3, everyone in this room is going to strike their pose, and we're all going to say our catchphrase. Okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Don't hold back. All right. Thank you, everyone.